In the cold, dark hours of the morning, the Foundation's silent acquisition of a derelict church turned its ghostly silhouette into an enigma of the night. The reasons for the clandestine purchase, shrouded in mystery, threaded a labyrinth of questions that echoed through the hollow halls of the hallowed building. Like a specter, the lingering question, "Why did the Foundation buy this church?" hung heavily in the air. Its answer was an elusive phantom, slipping through the fingers of the curious. Another sunless day at the Foundation beckoned. The icy tendrils of winter painted a silvery glaze on the world outside. It made the confines of the sterile office appear colder, starker, an insular world untouched by the frosty fingers of snow. As I walked in, the warmth of my office felt more like a mirage, a mocking illusion of comfort in the pervasive chill. Hanging my jacket, a futile shield against the winter's fury, I shook off the frost-laden memories of the journey to work. The icy chill was a perpetual nemesis, an inconvenience that had wreaked havoc on my punctuality. The chiding from my superiors, their scathing rebukes, still resonated in my mind. It was the bitter taste of reality I gulped down with an empty coffee cup. I yearned for the comforting warmth of caffeine, but duty called. I had to start. As I tied my hair into a bun, the muffled hum of the booting computer took over the silence of the room. The soft glow of the screen cut through the dimly lit office, casting an almost eerie illumination. My fingers moved deftly over the keys, entering the RISA access codes like a second language. The connection to the server was established, and soon enough, the familiar ping of an urgent message tore through the quiet. The subject read SCP-8727, a cryptic header to an enigma. I clicked it open, my curiosity piqued. Redacted information filled the screen. Data expunged, images removed. The secrecy surrounding this file was intriguing, the urgency even more so. The missing details, the gaps, were like blank canvases to a painter, a haven for my imagination. The origins of SCP-8727, why it was so crucial, and the connection to the church acquisition were unanswered riddles. The document on my screen was as barren as the church in question, stripped of its identity and purpose. The mysteries were entwined, their peculiarities reflecting each other. As I dived into the urgency of SCP-8727, the church's question remained unanswered, hanging in the back of my mind. Amidst the shadowy world of the Foundation, secrets were a commodity, even among its own. And so, the dawn of another day brought along another enigma. The coffee would have to wait, and the answers remained to be found. The allure of the unknown was a powerful motivator. The urgency, a beckoning call to solve the riddles of the Foundation, even if they were as hauntingly evasive as the morning fog. As the unseen glow of the computer monitor cast a cold pallor onto his face, the anonymous worker clicked on the cryptic message fastened to his inbox. A sudden frisson ran through the room, thin as gossamer thread but laden with implications, as he processed the terse text he found within. File this immediately and with utmost discretion. No inquiries necessary. The closing line was signed with the enigmatic 055A. The note bore the kind of cold power associated only with the upper echelons of the secure, contain, protect Foundation. Barely repressing a shiver, the worker wondered why one of the otherworldly O5 council members would need something hidden right away. Why would an organization, so committed to conservation and protection, desire to erase what it had fought so hard to contain? Why archive a document that was intended to be invisible? Yet he knew it was not his place to know. From his first day in the labyrinth of the SCP Foundation, he had learned to remain silent, brook no curiosity, and avoid his superior's wrath. Too many questions led only to tangled webs of paperwork and the crimson flare of angered supervisors. Thus he tried to wipe the disconcerting message from his mind as he slipped the report into the object catalog. SCP-8727, he thought, attempting to find solace in the neat, round figure. The routine task, he hoped, would anchor him amidst the encroaching storm of uncertainties. Seeking solace in the mundane, he ambled down the dimly lit corridors to fetch a steaming cup of coffee, a welcome distraction from the disquieting assignment he was tasked with. However, as he made his way back to the comforting hum of his computer, cradling the warmth of his coffee cup, his heart sank to the pit of his stomach. An error message glared at him from his screen. SCP-8727 already existed. The normalcy he had so desperately tried to cling to slipped away, leaving him adrift in a sea of uncertainty. With a sense of growing unease, he carefully placed his coffee aside, its warmth now a stark contrast to the chilling dread creeping within him. He gently closed the error message, his mind racing, his heart thundering against his ribcage. The mundane had suddenly turned surreal, and the mysteries of the SCP Foundation wrapped another layer around him. In the low light of the subterranean office, the man hunched over a polished table with an eerie green glow illuminating his face. His fingers dashed over the keyboard, sifting through the digital catacombs of classified information that shrouded the SCP Foundation's most closely guarded secrets. A specific serial number echoed in the back of his mind. SCP-8727. His search bore fruit, unveiling a report that had been buried in the depths of the database. The screen was filled with a silent testament of a series of inconceivable events. But, as he prepared to dive into the labyrinthine report, a prickling sense of dread crawled up his spine. Goosebumps stippled the back of his neck, an instinctive response to a predator's gaze. He turned, peering over his shoulder. The office was empty, swallowed by an engulfing darkness that seemed to seep into the corners, pooling in the edges of his peripheral vision. Only the soft hum of servers and the steady drip-drip of condensation from the pipes overhead kept him company. Satisfied, he turned back, allowing his eyes to refocus on the screen and the secrets it held. His gaze traced the digital lines of text. The narrative began unfolding, taking him back to the summer of 1991. The Foundation had acquired the object, SCP-8727, an act that seemed incongruous to its well-established protocols. It was a purchase that bore no tactical advantage, a deviation from the pragmatic modus operandi the Foundation had long adhered to. Who had authorized such an aberration remained a mystery, a puzzle piece that only added to the enigma of SCP-8727. The plot thickened further, revealing a series of bureaucratic blunders that had consigned the purchase into obscurity. It lay undetected within the cumbersome filing systems of the Foundation until the dawn of 2020. It was then that researcher Marco Ruiz, an individual as enigmatic as the case itself, was assigned to scrutinize the property linked to the object. The narrative veered into a chilling direction. Upon his arrival, Ruiz had made a frantic call to the higher-ups at Site-34, his voice echoing in the soundless void of encrypted communication lines. He had pleaded for armed reinforcements, his voice strained with an urgency that transcended the usual stoicism expected of Foundation personnel. Then, silence. An abrupt halt in communication that amplified the sense of dread seeping from the report. In response to Ruiz's cryptic distress signal, a specialized task force had been dispatched. MTF Row 9, codenamed Search and Rescue, had been quickly mobilized and sent to the site, their mission objective to neutralize any immediate threat. But all they found was an eerie silence, an absence of danger that belied the urgency of Ruiz's call. The report ended with an ongoing endeavor, a desperate search for the missing researcher. The fate of Marco Ruiz remained a troubling unknown, a question mark that hung over the SCP Foundation like a shroud. As the man absorbed the chilling implications of the report, the weight of what he'd read seemed to press down on him. An unsolved mystery, a forgotten artifact, and a missing researcher tugged at his mind, begging for answers. But for now, all he had were questions, and the echoing silence of a solitary office in the heart of the SCP Foundation. Distant memories of Ruiz came racing back to him like a startled flock of birds taking flight. A conscientious individual, Ruiz had a meticulous nature that was rare, even amidst the clinical precision of the SCP Foundation. Ruiz was an architect of order, arranging documents with a precision that was almost surgical. Each report, each file under Ruiz's care was treated like a newborn, with utmost attention to detail, care, and protection. It was a pity, a true misfortune, what transpired. He dragged his thoughts back from that precipice, a sigh of sorrow escaping him involuntarily as he sipped his lukewarm coffee. Alone in the dimly lit room, his thoughts splintered away from the tragedy and turned inwards, towards the elusive SCP-8727. The taste of the coffee was bitter on his tongue, like the unanswered questions swirling within his mind. Before he could proceed, however, caution had to be exercised. It was a dangerous game he was playing. He rose from his desk, the chair creaking in complaint beneath him. His footsteps echoed ominously as he trudged towards the door. The sound of the door lock sliding into place was metallic and unforgiving, reverberating in the quiet room. His hand then claimed the blinds, shutting out the last vestiges of the outside world. A glance at the security camera, cold and unblinking in its corner perch, sent a shiver down his spine. He moved back to his desk, deliberately positioning his body to obscure its view, like a magician blocking his audience's sight for the grand reveal. His hands then found the LAN cable connected to his computer, unplugging it unceremoniously. If he was to venture into uncharted territories, he would do so undetected. Curiosity sparked anew within him, a lone flame against the encroaching darkness. He delved into the depths of the database, a digital archaeologist seeking insights from records, travel logs, purchase receipts, and inventory reports. The hunt for traces of SCP-8727 was like navigating through a labyrinth, designed to deter even the most stubborn of seekers. But he was undaunted. Whoever had buried SCP-8727 in these depths had underestimated him. His eyes ached with the strain of staring at the screen, the minutes ticking away into oblivion. But then, a breakthrough. Another file, hidden away like a precious relic. Fresh excitement surged through him, pulsating in his veins. It was a small victory, but a victory nonetheless. The specter of Ruiz seemed to smile at him from the shadows, silent approval in its spectral gaze. Once containment had been successfully achieved, the order was given to carry out a comprehensive inspection of the location. The church where the anomaly was found had descended into chaos, with the physical ramifications of a violent encounter plainly visible. The aftermath of the struggle was written in sharp contrast against the once hallowed backdrop of the holy establishment. The south wall, which turned its face stoically toward the nearby graveyard, was stippled with bullet holes, each one a grim testament to the confrontation that had taken place. The skyward gaze of the pulpit ceiling revealed charred marks, a chilling testament to the fierce battle, as fiery tongues must have danced wickedly in the air. Further testament to the ferocity of the confrontation was the destruction of the staircase leading to the bell tower. The once sturdy wooden steps had splintered, cracked, and buckled under the weight of conflict. Inside the bell tower, a place reached only by the perilous ascent with climbing gear, resided a large bell. It was cast from a unique alloy of beryllium and bronze, the composition of which was. Notably, the bell did not just produce sounds that echoed across the landscape, but it also generated an anomalous field, the properties of which were, This field engulfed the entire land behind the church, drenching the cemetery and the total extent of SCP-8727. The disturbance or ringing of the bell had an amplifying effect on the field, intensifying the now. However, due to the violent brawl that had ensued earlier, the sound arch and clapperboard had suffered significant damage. The pieces of the ringing mechanism were strewn haphazardly around the tower, their destructive state suggesting the violence of their aggressive use. The bell, now silent and still, was like a broken soldier at rest. Its silence held an eerie tranquility, as if its voice had been forcibly stolen from it, adding another layer of dark mystery to the anomaly. With the sound structure damaged, the tolling of the bell was no longer a possibility, its great voice forever silenced by the throes of conflict. The investigation continued, but each new revelation only deepened the chilling enigma that was SCP-8727. The mystery of SCP-8727 remained, a surreal puzzle demanding to be deciphered. The attempts to relocate the enigma had only brought the threat of catastrophic structural failure. An elusive, haunting shadow of a solution lay just out of reach, and the organization now found itself engaged in a relentless pursuit of answers. The narrative was veiled under layers of expunged data, an abyss of redacted information. Such was the state of all classified knowledge, a labyrinth within a maze. Pity would often bubble up, bitter and reluctant, for the researchers left to grope blindly through the darkness of ignorance. They didn't have the keys to access the kingdom of knowledge. They were not privileged like their brethren in Raisa. These were the thoughts that clouded the consciousness of one specific narrator, a seasoned administrator, as he stepped forward. He was the gatekeeper of information, the decryptor of the expunged mysteries. He bore the burden of knowledge heavily, an insomniac guardian of 1,000 secrets. He worked his way through the electronic fortress, master administrator credentials in hand, a virtual Theseus in the labyrinth of data. As he entered the heart of the information, the narrative of SCP-8727 began to unfold, revealing itself layer by nefarious layer. Upon successful containment, a site-wide examination was greenlit. The building, once a hallowed sanctuary, lay desecrated, echoing with the silent screams of a violence past. The church, a once proud edifice, was in a severe state of disarray. Every brick, every crevice seemed to secret a tale of conflict and carnage. The south wall bore the brutal scars of a violent encounter. Bullet holes peppered it like malignant stars against the night sky. The church faced the cemetery, the very cradle of death, making the scars all the more ominous. The pulpit, once a beacon of holy reverence, bore the blight of burn marks against its ceiling, a grim testament to a fire that raged, not just physically but symbolically. The stairs leading to the bell tower lay crippled from structural damage. The bell tower, once a symbol of spiritual awakening, now loomed above like a silent sentinel, its voice muffled, its tales buried in the heart of the silent and eerie edifice. Thus, the story of SCP-8727 was veiled in a shroud of violence, a tale echoing from the depths of a desecrated church, ringing with silent screams in the ears of the knowing gatekeeper. In the lofty reaches of the ancient church bell tower, shrouded in the muted tones of past centuries and penetrated only by the brave rays of sunlight, there resided a formidable bell. Successive generations of climbers had dared the rickety ascent, each leaving behind their silent echoes in the creak of the wood, the rustle of the wind, and the cold touch of the metal rungs. Nestled within this precariously high refuge, the great bell itself was a mammoth construct, a melange of beryllium and bronze that bore the moniker of SCP-8727-1. From within the seemingly inert bulk of SCP-8727-1, a cryptic field radiated, a field that was the antithesis of the metaphysical. It wielded the power to neutralize all thaumaturgical practices, to render rituals powerless, and to extinguish the enigmatic light of objects drenched in a similar arcane essence. This unassuming spheroid of influence stretched its invisible arms over the entirety of SCP-8727 and out towards the forgotten gravestones that graced the rear cemetery. A mere disturbance of the bell, a single touch or breath of wind, had the power to amplify its nullifying effect. However, the privilege of commanding such power had been taken from them. The archaic mechanism that allowed SCP-8727-1 to ring had succumbed to the inexorable march of time and the violence of overzealous use. The once vibrant sound arch and clapperboard now bore the wounds of disrepair in the form of severe structural damage. The challenge currently facing the researchers was a terrifying conundrum. How could SCP-8727-1 be relocated without instigating an all-encompassing structural failure, a disaster that could forever silence the bell? Making their way back down from the ethereal solitude of the bell tower, the researchers found themselves in the hushed confines of the church. Within the sanctuary of silence, there existed a mechanical relic tied to the bell tower, an old manual alarm system. This system was connected by a labyrinthine tube that snaked through the walls, its other end shrouded in the shadowy recesses of the bell tower. Despite the initial surge of hope, the attempt to interact with this artifact of a bygone era was met with disappointment. Pulling the handle, the only form of interface with the system, did not yield the expected activation of SCP-8727-1. Upon further investigation, it was found that the internal components had succumbed to decay and disuse, leaving behind a hollow husk of what was once a beacon of warning and communication. Thus, the researchers were left to ponder the mysteries that lay within the church and its extraordinary bell, their solutions as elusive as the silent peals of SCP-8727-1. The sheltering roof of the curious edifice known as SCP-8727, along with the echoing alarm system installed within its stony walls, were recent additions in the grand timescale of their existence. They were but newborns given life a mere century ago, barely blinking in the light of the structure's estimated age of 3 centuries. A kind of temporal incongruity occurred here, an anachronistic mingle of epochs. The researchers' weary eyes stung with the bitter burn of sleep deprivation and excessive screen glare. The harsh light of the computer bled into the encroaching darkness, turning the room into a haunting palette of spectral blues and sharp whites. His sluggish thoughts strayed to the comfort of coffee, the rejuvenating nectar of the gods that had become his lifeline in these taxing, exhaustive quests for knowledge. For hours he'd been lost in the labyrinthine world of SCP-8727, ensnared in the web of its tantalizing mystery. He had forsaken the familiarity of lunch, thrusting his attention into the churning void of unsolved riddles instead of sating his gnawing hunger. Progress was a distant mirage, a spectral wisp that danced tantalizingly on the edge of his logic and understanding, but always out of reach. Nonetheless, he clung to a stubborn nugget of hope, an intangible sensation that whispered of imminent revelation. Perhaps if he could decipher the cryptic language of SCP-8727, the enigma of its veiled existence would unfurl before him. He yearned to understand why it was shrouded so, buried in the dense forest of obscurity. But that was a riddle for another moment, another cup of coffee perhaps. For now, he had a more immediate puzzle to dissect. Behind SCP-8727, a skeletal sentinel of gravestones stood watch over the serene cemetery. 13 cold stone sentinels guarding 12 graves, an odd discrepancy that raised more questions for the tireless researcher. The 5th grave in particular had been tainted by some intrusive force prior to containment, its sacred chamber violated. Its once sturdy coffin bore the marks of this transgression. Deep scratches that marred the polished wood, fierce dents that spoke of frantic energy, and burn marks that echoed the ones found within the church's hallowed halls. This desecration painted a horrifying picture, triggering a shiver that wound its way up his spine. As he delved deeper into the mystery of SCP-8727, the researcher felt the shadows of its past creep ever nearer, the dark tendrils of its secrets curling around him in an eerie embrace. The taste of a chilling revelation was in the air, awaiting the dawn of understanding that would come with the researcher's unyielding pursuit. The container lid lay mutilated, violently disjoined from the vessel it was once an integral part of. The once sturdy bolts and hinges now lay broken, a testament to some power that had been unleashed or a struggle too horrific to comprehend. The veil of the night had draped itself across the sky, each twinkling star a silent observer to the lonely dance of man and mystery. The hum of machines and whispers of my colleagues had bid their goodbye hours ago, leaving me the sole inhabitant of this fortress of secrets. Doubt gnawed at the edges of my mind, its bitter taste seeping into my thoughts. I held my gaze steady on the mutilated container, the visual representation of my current predicament. Had I been reduced to a fool's errand, chasing mere shadows and whispers? Had I let my dedication slip into obsession, my pursuit of truth turn into a wild goose chase? A cruel laugh echoed in the recesses of my mind. No. I shook my head, forcefully dispelling the invading darkness of doubt. My quest was not in vain, nor was my dedication misguided. I stood at the precipice of discovery, teetering on the edge of something monumental. I just needed to push a little further, dig a little deeper. The sudden ping of an incoming communication pulled me from my contemplation. An email, its subject line glowing against the otherwise dimmed screen. "Have you been able to archive the document as I requested?" The words pierced the quietude of the room, their implications heavy with expectation. The sender's sign-off, secure, contain, protect, 055, brooked no argument. I stared at the display, my heart pounding with a potent cocktail of guilt, fear, and frustration. I had been given a task, a simple one, estimated to be completed within the span of minutes. Yet I had let a full 24 hours pass, immersed in my pursuit of SCP-8727, indifferent to the deferral of my duties. I felt the sting of shame, the betrayal of my own professionalism, my integrity. I caught my reflection in the black mirror of the display, my face etched with lines of stress and determination. Resignation crept into my heart, the realization of my overstep settling heavily upon me. 055 had the authority to end my career, yet I wasn't ready to face that consequence. Not yet. I reached out, the cool surface of the mouse familiar under my touch. A single click, and the email disappeared, tucked away to be dealt with another day. I allowed my thoughts to drift back to SCP-8727, the allure of the enigma pulling me back in. Time slipped away, each passing minute marked by the rhythmic thump of my heart. Yet for all my dedication and resolve, I was no closer to unraveling the mysteries of SCP-8727. My eyes ached from the relentless pursuit of clues. My mind felt as fragmented as the broken container. Perhaps it was time to yield to the night, to succumb to the call of slumber that tugged at the edges of my consciousness. I reached out, fingers brushing the cold power button of my computer's monitor, plunging the room into near darkness. The broken container stood out against the gloom, a silhouette of its former self, mirroring my own state of mind. I rose, my chair creaking under the sudden shift of weight. Tomorrow, I promised myself, tomorrow we begin again. An inexplicable warmth began to crawl over the sterile confines of the office, a peculiar sensation that seeped into the edges of his consciousness. The air seemed to grow heavy, pressing down upon him like an unseen entity. As beads of sweat swarmed the back of his neck, he couldn't help but question the sudden shift in ambience. Was this environmental change a figment of his overworked mind, or was the room genuinely growing hotter? An odor lingered in the air, permeating the room like an uninvited guest. His nostrils flared, detecting a whiff of something distinct yet horrifyingly familiar. The bitter tang of charred matter. An undercurrent of dread ignited within his chest, propelling him to swivel on his chair abruptly. A thick plume of smoke billowed through his office space, a stoic and silent invader. Its acrid scent wormed its way into his lungs, forcing him into a coughing fit. The chair slid back abruptly at his sudden movement, sending him sprawling onto the floor in a clumsy heap. His beloved mug of coffee lay shattered, its contents seeping into the parched carpet. He scrambled, lungs heaving, for the door that had once represented freedom, now a barrier between him and safety. But as soon as his trembling fingers closed over the handle, a searing pain splintered through his palm. The metal was scorching hot, the intense heat leaving an imprint of his hand seared onto the handle. His plea for help echoed through the office corridor, but there was nothing but silence in response. The door was ablaze, a relentless inferno that danced with malicious glee. Plumes of smoke filled the room, weaving through the air like vengeful spirits. The fire suppressant system, a trusty ally in such situations, remained eerily silent, its typical nonchalance replaced with a deafening lack of intervention. Adrenaline, however, exploded within him like a dormant volcano awakened. Harnessing this newfound energy, he picked up his chair, and with a roar of desperation, he hurtled it towards the door. The impact reverberated through the room, but no dent marred the stubborn barrier. He tried again, this time lashing out with his foot, but the energy was waning, replaced by the creeping chill of despair. The fire continued its unforgiving dance, licking at his clothes, the scent of burning fabric mingling with the smoke. His lungs burned. The once life-giving air was now a smothering enemy, and his sight was becoming a murky haze. Coughing violently, he sunk to his knees, eyes straining through the smoke's oppressive veil. He clawed at his constricting throat, gasping for precious air as his world spiraled into a frightening dance of smoke and flame. Drowning in a pool of desperation, the air seemed to flee from my lungs. The walls of my suffocating reality closed in, my world shrinking to the silhouetted figure concealed behind the ominously looming door. There was a sense of finality in the air, a potent note that resonated in the stillness, creating a symphony of dread. Then, cutting through the silence like the tolling of a death knell, a voice resonated from behind the barricade. "Your actions have served as a reminder," the voice echoed, a chillingly impersonal tone that sent shivers down my spine. "The age-old adage rings true, even now. If one yearns for a task's completion, one must take it upon themselves." The words hung in the air, heavy and foreboding. My consciousness began to fade, the room spinning as my vision blurred around the edges. A suffocating darkness crawled into my sight, consuming the last glimpse of my reality before plunging me into a void of the unknown. As if on cue, everything went ominously dark. The dark tale of SCP-8727 became a haunting echo, resonating within the haunted corridors of my subconscious. Its narrative was woven into the fabric of the SCP Wiki, crafted masterfully by Uncle Nicolini. The SCP universe was a treasure trove of the arcane and the obscure, of horrors whispered in hushed tones, and Uncle Nicolini's contribution added another layer to this enigma. Every detail, every artifact contributed to the narrative fabric, from the haunting image of Colleg St. Ludwig 06.jpg, a contribution of Marcus Schweiss, to the visually striking Panama Canal construction, LCCN 20066680089. These, along with the innocuous emergency brake handle, served as markers in the tale, each enhancing the depth of the narrative, lending a unique aura to the story. The narrative of SCP-8727 became a testament to the creative genius of Uncle Nicolini and the SCP community, a chilling narrative etched into the annals of the SCP Wiki, a tale of intrigue and horror that would continue to haunt the reader long after the last word was read. As the darkness claimed me, I found myself drawn into the abyss, becoming a part of the profound narrative of SCP-8727. Hidden within a forgotten folder on an overworked hard drive, 2 image files remained, untouched by time and prying eyes. They bore cryptic titles, carrying a weight of dark history and chilling mystery with them. One hauntingly dubbed lastbreath.jpg, the other ominously named exhumation.jpg. The first file was credited to an artist known only as Dimitra. Though her identity remained shrouded in obscurity, her work under the license CC by SA 4.0, had somehow found its way to the digital vaults of the Wikimedia Commons. The solitary whisper of her name, Dimitra, echoed through the vast labyrinth of the internet, her works as elusive and enigmatic as she was. What secrets did she carry? What truths were veiled within her artistry? The photograph titled Last Breath was a haunting masterpiece. It was as if Dimitra had captured the soul's final departure from a corporeal shell. its ethereal form etched into the physical realm. It was an image that clung to the mind, a disturbingly beautiful paradox of life and death intertwined. The more one observed it, the more the details bled into reality, the starkness of mortality becoming all too palpable. These artistic renderings of Demetra, veiled under a layer of anonymity, added a layer of chilling intrigue to the narrative, pulling the viewer deeper into the dizzying vortex of dread and fascination. The second photo, simply titled exhumation.jpg, was attributed to an unknown author. A relic from a forgotten era, this image had been relinquished to the public domain, its origins lost to the annals of time. It was a chilling black and white photograph bearing the caption Palmiry, exhumation of Mieczysław Niedziałkowski. The name, a mere whisper of a lost soul, still echoed with a haunting resonance. The photo depicted a grim scene, the utter desolation of a mass grave in Palmiry. The skeletal remains of Mieczysław Niedziałkowski laid bare for all to see, his final resting place violated by the cruel hands of fate. This was not the solemnity of a peaceful interment, but the horror of a grave disturbed, the sanctity of death unceremoniously desecrated. As the two photographs hung suspended in the digital domain, they served as chilling reminders of mortality's fragile veil. Each image held its own tale of dread, their narratives intertwined in a haunting dance of death, their authors lost to the abyss of time. Their stories, however, remained. They resonated within the pixels, a testament to the lasting echo of forgotten voices and the relentless passage of time. Their silent pleas for remembrance echoed in the vast emptiness of the digital void, awaiting the moment when someone would stumble upon them and breathe new life into their narratives.